So when it comes to Zebec, they actually did it. They actually appeared yet again in another Bundesliga soccer match. I just saw that and I thought it was pretty cool, even though nothing I say is financial advice. But keep in mind, remember in my last video when I talked about how Zebec alongside Tangem was planning to appear in a soccer match in the Bundesliga when it comes to Bayern München against Bayer Leverkusen, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but again, I thought it was a pretty cool thing that they're doing. However, now they actually did it yet again. This is another appearance that they have when it comes to the Bundesliga, because remember in the previous soccer match that they appeared in, I forgot what exactly that match was. However, now they have actually appeared in another one yet again. In which case, keep in mind, this soccer match right here that they appeared in had around 30,000 people in attendance, and it was at the Bay Arena, which I thought was pretty cool. And this was supposedly in Germany. So when I take a look at this right here, I thought this was really interesting because when I take a look at Zebec, supposedly just appearing in front of around 30,000 individuals, that was pretty cool. And keep in mind, that's just from the arena itself, right? Imagine from social media, imagine from the videos, imagine from the highlights and all this. That would be pretty awesome. Now, granted though, people like to tell me, well, why didn't it do much to the charts when it comes to ZBCN? But again, just like I mentioned in my previous video, that in and of itself won't really do much to the charts when it comes to ZBCN, but sometimes it could matter later on if the sentiment were to change and people take a look back at stuff like this, right? And if anything, if Zebec, by appearing in those soccer matches, if it could maybe have better exposure to maybe enterprises, to individuals who do work at enterprises and stuff like that, that could matter, right? In terms of partnerships, in terms of collaborations, and that sometimes goes far beyond whatever goes onto the charts, because a lot of it is usually internal and they usually announce it after something has happened. So I feel like we don't really know the actual direct results of what this could be, right? Because imagine they appear in those games, maybe some enterprises take a look at Zebec, they start looking into what it's all about, and then they try to have a partnership. Sometimes that isn't really talked about because, you know, it goes on behind the scenes. But then sometimes people just take a look at the charts and they say, oh, Zebec's not doing anything. But maybe they are behind the scenes. So this advertising right here that they just recently did, I think could maybe have implications not only for what people could care later on if the market picks up again, but maybe as to what enterprises see that and as a result try to have a partnership with them or have a collaboration. So I do find it to be pretty cool at the end of the day. I mean, sure, it's probably not the coolest thing of all time, but it's still pretty impressive if I consider just the timing of when Zebec is doing this. Because keep in mind, a lot of other projects out there, they pretty much ran out of resources, right? They're kind of done. A lot of people like to say, oh, they're kind of cooked. And in some cases, I do agree. But when it comes to Zebec, they're still able to continue to do stuff like this, which I find very impressive because for other projects out there, it's just simply not possible anymore, right? A lot of other projects out there, they ran out of resources probably to do this type of stuff. So I do find it pretty cool that something like Zebec is still able to sustain something like this, especially at a time like right now. However, as of right now, I'm still a fan when it comes to Zebec. I just have no reason to leave actually. And sure, the charts are low, but do I really want to leave right now just for no reason? I mean, I'd basically at that point just locked in all of the downwards movements, right? By realizing all of it, by exiting, which I don't want to do. But even besides that, as of right now, I'm still dollar cost averaging only once a month because the way you take a look at it is if ZBCN never sees an altcoin season, let's say it never does that for whatever reason again, but then let's say in a make-believe scenario, it goes back to around a 500 million market cap in which we saw a couple times in 2025. If let's say it just went back to that level, I'm not saying an altcoin season just goes back to that previous level. Again, we're around 2.5 times lower than that. So am I going to complain? The answer is no, because Bitcoin's not around 2.5 times lower than its all-time high. That's the way to take a look at it. So if someone asked me, would I rather choose Bitcoin or this as of right now? I don't know why I would want to choose Bitcoin personally. This is just my perspective. Because again, if Bitcoin goes back to its all-time high, I mean, that'd be pretty impressive. However, it's on around 2.5 times lower than that. So yeah, that's just the way to take a look at it. However, on the flip side, ZBCN's around 2.5 times lower than around a 500 million market cap, in which we saw a couple times back in 2025. So yeah, again, I don't know why I would want to choose Bitcoin, but that's just personally my perspective as of right now. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Now, I understand that, of course, ZBCN is an altcoin, right? Inherently, it has a way smaller market cap than something like Bitcoin, and it's not going to be able to have that notoriety or the somewhat relatively speaking, I guess to a certain extent, stability, right? When compared to something like Bitcoin. But at the same time, I don't mind because the way you take a look at it is usually these type of projects that have a small market cap, sometimes the ceiling is a little bit farther away. It doesn't mean it is, but it could maybe be the case. So that's why when I take a look at ZBCN, it's relatively speaking not such a massive altcoin. You know, going from around a 200 million market cap to around 500 million, you know, the volume needed sometimes isn't that extensive, right? Comparatively speaking to a project out there that has a market cap that is in the hundreds of billions maybe, or even like over a trillion, again, it's going to be pretty like intense. You know, sometimes it's pretty tough to like maybe make a 30-40% movement. But for a smaller project, which I think hypothetically ZBCN is, we've seen what it kind of did even back in 2025 without altcoin season. So this is why I still like these projects that have a relatively speaking smaller market cap. But it's not like I want to go into a micro cap either because, you know, who knows what's going to happen there, right? However, of course, I can't control anything that's going to happen here either. But at least when it comes to ZBCN, even though it may have a bigger market cap than a micro cap, it has around 96,000 holders. Also, on top of that, it has backers like Solana Ventures and as well Circle, which is the creator of USDC. So again, it's kind of like that balance in between for me, that medium, I would say, where it isn't a micro cap, but at the same time, it's not such a massive dinosaur, but in the same time, it has like a decently sized market cap and it still has kind of the community, the fundamentals. So I still like seeing something like this. It's kind of like a best of both worlds type of scenario for me, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I tend to like projects that aren't so massive, but not too small either, but at the same time still have like, you know, more of established following, kind of having decent fundamentals. I do look for projects like that, and I feel like, you know, this does tick that box for me. Now, I don't only just hold ZBCN, by the way, and I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but it is one of the projects that I am holding because I like the fundamentals. I like its focus on global trade and finance. Sure, it's probably never going to overtake Ripple and Stellar, but who cares, right? I mean, it doesn't need to. In my opinion, if ZBCN could just maybe go back to around a 500 million market cap, in which we saw again a couple times back in 2025, there's no complaints on my part. But at the same time, I still like the fundamentals, has an aspect of Solana, so I don't know why I would just leave like that. I mean, again, it just kind of makes no sense for me to do that. But even besides that point, though, again, if I take a look at Zebec, people like to say, oh, it's not going to really be doing anything, but they still have things planned for their super app, or should I say the Zebec super app, in which case they're planning the enterprise rollout. And also furthermore, I'm still excited to see what their long-term plans look like when it comes to World Mobile and also when it comes to the effects of what their partnership with Lattice could be, right? Lattice, keep in mind, is allegedly the first ever neobank built on the Canton network. So I do find that to be pretty cool. And yeah, overall, I'm still a fan when it comes to Zebec. I haven't given up, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Willie the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.